questions that were given in the General Studies paper 2 in the recent times. One of such questions is related to center-state relations, and we need to understand the method, the best method to write answer is okay. So the best method to understand the dimensions of question and how to promote critical thinking, these are certain objectives of this particular program. Okay, right. So first of all, if you try to look at this question, what changes has the union government recently introduced in the domain of center and state relations? Suggest measures to be adapted to build trust between center and states. So this question has its own inbuilt assumption. Okay, right. So if you try to see, there are two parts of the question, and first part is asking what are the changes that have been brought into center and state relations, and as a supplementary question, this particular part 2 was asked. So in other words, the part 1 might be considered as such changes which were introduced by the center, those were not completely acceptable to the states. So there is a mixed situation in the first part of the question. Okay. So then in the context of this particular answer, you need to write measures. So you cannot write just changes introduced by the center in a plain manner, rather you need to introduce some critical thinking or criticism in the first part. Okay. In the second part, you require to understand the requirement of the question in recommending the reforms or recommending the measures to build the trust between center and states. Okay, right. So first of all, let us understand the overall approach of this question. Overall approach, if you try to understand, the center and state relations are becoming so dynamic in the recent times, particularly due to the pressures of liberalization, privatization and globalization. Moreover, we need to understand governance cannot be a standalone activity. Governance cannot be a standalone or fragmented or isolated activity. Okay, governance cannot be understood in the silos. Okay, it must be a holistic concept. Okay, despite the responsibility between center and states have been divided by the constitution, we cannot divide the holistic aspect of the governance. That's why center and states relations will be highly dynamic. Incidentally, what will happen, in order to address any given matter holistically, one government tend to get into the domain of the other government. Okay, so such kind of incidental encroachments are quite obvious in the present dynamics of the affairs of the state, particularly due to the pressures of liberalization, privatization and globalization. And of course, if you try to go through center and state relations topic properly, there are many doctrines, like for example, doctrine of pith and substance, doctrine of territorial nexus. Like that, there are various doctrines which explain one government may incidentally encroach into the domains of the other government. So we cannot completely rigidly divide the powers between center and states in the operational context. Okay, so obviously, if any effort by one government to address a matter in a holistic manner, definitely it may get some reservations from the other governments. Okay, and particularly the government after 2014 is coming up with radical reforms, particularly in the center-state relations, because government has recognized there is a requirement of more convergence between center and states, right? So in order to promote this convergence, government is coming up with a very, very innovative mechanism. Okay, so let us discuss what are those different mechanisms and what are those different aspects. But however, we can understand one trend very clearly, that central government is exploring different types of federalisms, like for example, cooperative federalism, competitive federalism and bargaining federalism. Cooperation, competition, bargaining. Sometimes it is also transforming itself into combative federalism. Okay, so it is not a bad thing about cooperative federalism. competitive federalism and bargaining federalism, but the problem arises only due to combative federalism. So that's why examiner is asking, okay, what kind of measures would you suggest to build the trust between center and states. So the combative federalism is due to the dilution of the trust between center and states. So this dimension of the question must be effectively addressed. So let us write the answer systematically. I hope you are watching how I am writing answer and how I am trying to provide the proper inputs to the answer. Okay, so you need to follow every aspect of the discussion. You need to note down these points, and definitely these points can be useful for writing answers in the mains, because the questions will be changing from one exam to another examination, but what will not be changing is the themes of the examination will not be changing. So that's why you must be very much aware of this. Okay, right. So question is, let us understand the question: what changes the government has recently introduced in the domain of center and state relations? Okay, so we need to begin the answer with the context. So we can say it is an introduction. Okay, right. In the recent years, in the context of global dynamics and the requirement of India to promote development and transformation of its economy. The union government has introduced various reforms in the center and state relations. Center and state relations, thus and promoting holistic governance with effective coordination between center and states. Right, this is how we need to write introduction. Right, it explains the context of the particular question. What is it? In the recent years, in the context of the dynamics, okay, the global dynamics and the requirement of India to promote development and transformation of its economy, the union government has introduced various reforms in the center and state relations and promoting holistic governance with effective coordination between center and states. Okay, so this is the context of the, what is it, changes introduced, what changes it has introduced. So this is what the context of the question. Okay, then after you write the context, let us also write what is it, what are the changes. Okay, the changes introduced by center in center state relations. Okay, fall under various dimensions. Right. What are the dimensions it fall under? Okay, fall under various dimensions. These include, right, cooperative federalism. First dimension is cooperative federalism. Right. So what is cooperative federalism? So in the dimension of cooperative federalism, where central states okay, working in collaboration, okay, and coordinating each other in policy formulation and implementation, right, without violation of implementation in the matters of common concern, without violating the federalism. That is what called as cooperative federalism, without violating the division of powers in the constitution. So that is how you can write the cooperative federalism, right. So what are the changes that have been brought in this particular sphere? If we try to look at the changes that have been brought include, okay, first establishment of Niti Aayog. So establishment of Niti Aayog, actually it is a phenomenal step, it is a radical step, departure from the earlier policy of the government, right. So it has replaced the planning commission. So this has been a very big change that we have brought, because this Niti Aayog will be promoting cooperative federalism. It will promote Team India spirit. Right. Similarly, we can also say second one, GST, goods and service tax. Okay. So one nation, one tax. It is a phenomenal tax reform, and particularly Article 279A. This forms GST Council, where there will be a consultative mechanism to address the issue of the tax rates, which will be commonly affecting both central and states. Okay, right. So that is how GST Council, and then the recommendations of 15th Finance Commission. Okay, so the major changes that were introduced due to this 15th Finance Commission include, for example, you can say vertical devolution of taxes. Vertical devolution of taxes from central tax resources, net tax resources of the central government. So that is up to 41%. 41% share is to be given to the states. Okay. Similarly, 15th Finance Commission also has given a phenomenal recommendation for strengthening the state consolidated fund to augment the resource potential of local bodies, right. So this is how cooperative spirit is reflected. And moreover, COVID-19 response. Where central and states have collectively worked in the direction of addressing this COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, right. Similarly, and the negotiation between center and states in various matters. For example, you can say GST compensation. So this is also an example for this cooperative federalism. Okay, these are the recent changes. Okay, similarly, promotion of aspirational district program, ADP, aspirational district program, and the implementation of the common schemes, health insurance schemes like national health mission, of course, and you can also say Ayushman Bharat, aspirational district program we have just written. Okay, so this is how we are able to see the changes introduced by the center in the sphere of what is it, cooperative federalism. And not only the cooperation, but also central government has promoted competition. So competitive federalism, right? This competitive federalism include, for example, the competition among the states, like in the matters of education, health, ease of doing business. Okay, so where competitive spirit is generally encouraged by the central government. Okay, not only that, the 15th Finance Commission also given recommendations for performance based grants to be given to the states. Okay, so this has radically changed the perspective of the governance in the country. So states are competing with each other in the improvement of the performance parameters. Okay, right. And not only that, we can also see another important aspect, that is what bargaining federalism. So in the bargaining federalism, you are able to see the bargains between center and states for concessions. For example, central government, the GST compensation was there between 2017 to 2022. What the states are requesting the central government to give more extension period for the GST compensation mechanism. Okay, right. So there are various consultations going on. Even the states are also asking to do away with the cess and surcharge. Okay, more space for borrowing by the states, So like this, there are various aspects which have been introduced by the central government. Okay, right. So this is how we can briefly write what are the changes. Okay, so this is how we can write. Then we need to write, however, we need to write certain things, like even we can also write in the cooperative sphere, even the interstate council was reconstituted, and there are frequent meetings of zonal councils, and the central government is restructuring centrally sponsored schemes. Central government is restructuring centrally sponsored schemes. Central government, the union government also implemented one of the recommendations given by 15th Finance Commission, that is giving revenue deficit grants to almost all 17 states. Okay, so this is how there were various reforms introduced by the central government in very, very critical aspects of the center and state relations. Okay, but we need to give some assessment here. Okay, so not only writing these reforms, but there are certain concerns. Okay, what are the concerns of the states in the center regarding the center state relations? Right. Concerns of the states. Okay, despite these changes were introduced by the central government, there are many concerns. So these concerns include the policies of central government, which were introduced into the domain of center state relations, okay. Few of them became reasons for concern, for concerns of states. Since they are promoting centralization or a tilt towards centralization, okay, right. In what sense the states have the concern, okay. For example, bills of states are delayed by governor and president. This is one reason. Number two, excessive burden on state finances, both due to huge number of centrally sponsored schemes, and decreased shares of union contribution. For example, state of Maharashtra has noticed that the CSS share is decreased to 60% in the, that is the central government's share is decreased to 60% in the MG Narega scheme, right. This is next, third one. Cess and surcharge are not being shared with states. Okay. Strict control over borrowing powers of the states. Okay, strict control over the borrowing powers of the states. And not only that, okay, and inadequate GST compensation. More centralization initiatives by union. For example, you take one nation, one election. One nation, one ration. One nation, one tax. Okay. So these kind of schemes are more in the implementation. So this is considerably raising the concerns of the states. Why? Because it is a kind of a centralization. One nation, one examination. For example, NEET, we can say NEET. So like Tamil Nadu, like states are having the reservations. Okay. And coming to other aspects, we have also written, I think, the borrowing power of the states. Borrowing power of the states are also curtailed. Seventh one, the central government, the union parliament is enacting laws on state list and concurrent list. In the state list, not directly it is enacting the state list, but it is a colorable legislation, colorable manner. Example, farm laws. Okay. So, without the consultation of the states or without the consent of the states. Particularly concurrent list, you take the central government wants to introduce power sector reforms. Power sector reforms. So, these are not accepted by the states. So, like this there are various concerns raised by the states in the matters of the new initiatives introduced by the center. Okay. Then, so what is the question is about? The question is clearly asking us, so what are the suggest measures to be adapted to build trust between center and states. So, this question is being asked. Sorry. Okay. So, of course, I am not able to open that. So, now, so what are the reforms you suggest? What are the reforms one can suggest? Okay. Right. Right. So, reforms one can suggest is, first one, proper reconstitution of the, so for example, in order to address the concerns between center and states, first trust building must be there, trust building. Okay. Without trust building, you cannot help in strengthening of the center state relations. First and foremost important thing is the trust building is possible by the frequent meetings of interstate council, okay, and frequent meetings of zonal councils. So, this will help in better negotiations between center and states. And not only that, there must be rationalization of CSS, centrally sponsored schemes, and the center cannot enact law on state list in a colorable manner. Moreover, if it requires to enact the law on the concurrent list, it must mandatorily consult the states. So, this recommendation is given by Poonchi Commission. Okay. And particularly, governors must be apolitical. So, this is given by Sarkariya Commission. Okay. And 15th Finance Commission also recommended there must be there is an independent body to monitor the GST. How the GST is being implemented, that must be monitored. Okay. And so there are various recommendations this way, and we can also suggest more space to be given to consultation to strengthen cooperation between center and state, cooperative federalism. For example, regarding interstate water disputes. Okay, so there must be regular assessment how the river water disputes are being resolved, and in that sense we need to expedite the enactment of the amendment to Water Disputes Tribunals Act. Okay, and moreover, central government also has amended RTA, okay, in the unilateral manner, okay, in 2019, where the central government has acquired the power to decide the conditions of service of the information commissioners appointed at the state level, State Information Commission. So such kind of things must be effectively resolved. Okay, then so there must be more role given to Niti Ayog, because Niti Ayog's recommendations must be taken serious. For example, Niti Ayog has recommended Mission Bhagiratha and other projects must be sponsored by the central government. So likewise, the things must be taken at very serious note. Okay, so then only, and moreover, CBI, ED, okay, and other central agencies shall not be politically targeting the politicians. I mean, the leaders of the opposition party states, okay, or opposition party ruled states. So this cannot be used as a tools of political vendetta. So that will also be enhancing the trust of the states, trust between center and states. That's how you can build the trust between center and states. And so we can think this way. Moreover, the central government shall not be restricting the fiscal space of the states by giving the tied grants. Okay, so the tied grants must be converted into flexi grants. You must be giving flexibility for the states to spend the money. Okay, so this is how we can recommend changes in the center-state relations in order to strengthen the center-state relations. Okay, I hope you got the clarity. So we have given the context of the answer. We have discussed what are the different dimensions of changes introduced by the center and states in the matters of center and state relations: cooperative federalism, competitive federalism, and bargaining federalism. And then how there is a combative federalism between center and states because of the trust deficit between center and states because of certain centralization moves. Then we have come up with the detailed recommendations. So this is how we can write the answer. Okay, so kindly watch the video till the end and try to give inputs. Okay, and you can also ask the questions or queries. You can get the queries clarified. Okay, thank you so much.